Once again, we say Shabbat Shalom to those who are listening via YouTube. If you've tuned back in, Barak Yahuwah, welcome back to this will say part 8. It will say part 8 for the sake of order. It will say part 8, but we're really part of the same teaching today, but for the sake of order, because this is going to be 2 separate YouTube videos, this will be part 8. And so for those of you who are joining us back for part 8, we say Shabbat Shalom to you. Shabbat Shalom worldwide to the elder Ak Yahuda, to the younger Ak Ephraim, and to the stranger who has enjoined or engrafted unto us. Shabbat Shalom to you, to the 4 corners of the Iraq, wherever your feet touch the soil. So we stopped off in this teaching, searching for the ancient path, Abram, looking at Abram, and we were reading in Jashar, the 16th chapter, and we stopped at verse 8. So now we're going to pick this back up, reading from verse 9 in the 16th chapter of the book of Jashar, commonly called Jasher. And when he returned from smiting these sovereigns, he and his men passed the valley of Siddim, where the sovereigns had made war together. And Bara, sovereign of Sadum, and the rest of his men that were with him, went out from the lime pits into which they had fallen to meet Abram and his men. And Adani Zadok, sovereign of Jerusalem, the same was Sham. Now, in our other translations, this is going to say Melchizedek. Indeed, he was not the Melchizedek, but he was a priest. Sham was a priest, a Kahan, in the order of Melchizedek. Only Yahuwah is Melchizedek, but those who are born from him, who are his sons, are to Melchizedek. All of our ancient fathers were Melchizedek. All of them were priests. Sham wasn't the only one, so was Nuach. So was Sham, and so was Abba or Eber, so was Kanuk, so was Methuselah. The first Melchizedek was Adam himself. Yes, he was. He was Melchizedek. And so those who are born from above, not of flesh and of blood, who are born from the loins of Melchizedek, who is Yahuwah, who are his sons, we are Melchizedek. We understand that this is a foreshadowing. I'm not going to go into complete detail, but this is a foreshadowing of the restoration of all things, when both male and female are restored back to their natural state as rulers, where they will co-rule, where in the restoration of all things, it is my belief that there will be no genders, because it is written, Yahusha says that there will be no marrying and giving away in marriage. He's not talking about the millennial reign. He's talking about eternity, the restoration of all things, where we will be as the Malachim, neither marrying or giving away in marriage, being in my opinion genderless. In my opinion, genderless, neither male nor female, being genderless. But I say this because nothing but a Kahan can come into his presence. Only a Kahan can come into his presence. And so those who enter through the gates of the city, where there are 12 stones, 12 precious stones, are above the gate of that city, as the Kahan had 12 stones upon his breastplate, when he entered into the most Kadosh place, into the presence of Yahuwah, that was a foreshadowing of the restoration of all things, of the remnant of his creation, entering into those gates, entering into his very presence, where only Kahan or Kahanim are going to be able to enter into his presence. Only Kahan in the order of Melchizedek are going to be able to enter into his presence. And so all of my righteous fathers, all of them were priests. Indeed, he says in Shamut, the 19th chapter, that we are what? We are a nation of priests. We are a nation of Kahanim in the order of Melchizedek. And so as priests, as Kahan, we are to what? We are to teach the nations the ways of Yahuwah. We are to teach the nations the laws and the statutes and the commandments of Yahuwah. We are to teach them the ancient path. Yes, we are. We are to teach them the ancient path. This is our assignment. This is our assignment, to teach the nations the ancient path so that they too will find life, so that they too will find rest. You see, it's never been about just the nation of Yasha'al. It's never been about just the nation of Yasha'al. Yasha'al as a nation of Kahan represents the remnant of mankind. You see, it's always been about reconciling Adam, his son Adam, back to himself. It's always been about this. But he uses his nation of Kahan. He wants to use his nation of Kahanim as priests to go to the remnant of Adam, to go to the sons of Adam, in order that through his nation of Kahan, that he would reconcile the remnant of Adam back to himself. Back to himself. He loved Adam. Yes, he did. Yes, he did. And he still loves Adam. He still loves Adam. Yes, he does. Yes, he does. So reading here, verse 11 again. And Melchizedek, here in the Safar it says Adonizedek, but that's not correct. It is Melchizedek, sovereign of Jerusalem. The same was Sham. The same was Sham, our father Sham. Indeed, we who are from the loins of Sham, the nation of Yasha'al, being a nation of Kahanim, in the order of Melchizedek, went out with his men to meet Abram and his people with bread and wine, and they remained together in the valley of Malak. Here is another characteristic, Mashpaka. Here is another characteristic for the male sons who are walking this ancient path in Ruach and in truth. If we are truly walking this ancient path in Ruach and in truth, guess what? We are priests. Yes, we are. That 144,000, they are all priests. Yes, they are. They are all priests. And so here is another characteristic. If we are truly walking this ancient path, we are priests. We are Kahan, who are well versed in the way, in the ancient path of Yahuwah. Yes, we are. Yes, we are. Because he teaches us. Because he teaches us. He teaches us all things. Yes, he does. Yes, he does. And Melchizedek, sovereign of Jerusalem, the same was Sham, went out with his men to meet Abram and his people with bread and wine, and they remained together in the valley of Malak. And Melchizedek Baruch Abram. And Melchizedek Baruch Abram. And Abram gave him a tenth from all that he had brought from the spoil of his enemies. Does not a Kahan Baruch the people? Yes, he does. Yes, he does. This is why we say, Yahuwah barak you and guard you. Yahuwah make his face shine upon you and show favor to you. Yahuwah lift up his face upon you and give you shalom. Thus you shall put my name on the children of Yasha'al, and I myself shall barak them. This is done by a Kahan. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. And so Sham here, as a Kahan, he did what? He barak Baruch Abram and his people. He baruch them. This is what a Kahan does. This is what a Kahan does. And Melchizedek Baruch Abram. And Abram gave him a tenth from all that he brought from the spoil of his enemies. The tithe of the spoil of all that he brought from his enemies. Now you better believe here that this tithe here, even here, constituted some goats and some sheep and some cattle and some wine and some bread. Yes, it did. Yes, it did. Sham didn't care anything about money. He didn't care anything about money. You better believe that this tithe, even here, was food. It was food. For Melchizedek was a Kahan before Elohim. For Melchizedek was a Kahan before Elohim. This is another characteristic of someone who is truly walking the ancient path, all his male sons. And indeed a foreshadowing of the restoration of all things when we all will be Kahan. But as for now, this distinction is only given to his male sons. To his male sons. So all of his male sons who were born from his loins, who were walking, truly walking this ancient path, who were truly walking the ancient path, are Kahan, are priests in the order of Melchizedek. Verse 13. And all the sovereigns of Sodom and Amorah were there with their servants. With their servants approached Abram and begged of him to return their servants, whom he had made captive, and to take unto himself all the property. And Abram answered the sovereigns of Sodom, saying, As Yahuwah lives, who created Shamayim and Araz, and who redeemed my soul, my being, my nafas, from all affliction, who delivered me this day, and who delivered me this day. You see, those who walk in the ancient path, we do what? We give esteem to Yahuwah. We give esteem to Yahuwah. We take credit for nothing. We give esteem to Yahuwah, and who delivered me this day, and we mean it. We mean it. There are many who give him lip service, but they mean it. They mean it when they give him esteem. Yes, they do. Yes, they do. And who delivered me this day from my enemies and gave them into my hand. I will not take anything belonging to you. See, we're also those who walk in the ancient path, again, upright and righteous men. Upright and righteous men, reverencing Yahuwah, and walking upright before Yahuwah and before men. Now, this stuff didn't belong to Abram. It didn't belong to Abram. He simply wanted loot. He simply wanted his brother back. He didn't care about all this other stuff. That's another characteristic. We don't care anything about goods or belongings. We don't care anything about that. Those who are walking the ancient path. He didn't care anything about that. All he wanted was loot. And what belonged to loot, this stuff didn't belong to them. It was taken from these people. It didn't belong to Abraham. He could have kept it, but it wouldn't have been the right thing. So those who truly walk the ancient path do not care about goods, do not care about belongings. We walk upright before men and Elohim, and we do not take anything not belonging to us. And we also give Yahuwah, we give him esteem for all things. We do not take any esteem from him. We give him esteem for all things, and we mean it. And we mean it. I will not take anything belonging to you, that you may not boast tomorrow, saying, Abram became rich from our property that he saved. Abram became rich from our property that he saved. No, I didn't become rich from you. You don't give me anything. Yahuwah makes me rich. You take this. At least you say you made me rich. You didn't make me rich, but my property comes from Yahuwah and from Yahuwah alone. Indeed, those who walk upright before him will lack not any good matter. Verse 15. And Yahuwah YAHUAH'S, in whom I trust. In whom I trust. Here is another characteristic that we spoke about last Shabbat. Those who truly walking this ancient path, we trust him. We trust him. Indeed, without trust, it is impossible to please him. Before we can come to him, we must first believe that he is, and that he is a rewarder of them who diligently seek him. Indeed, those who walk this ancient path, we trust him. We trust his word. Indeed, trust and amunah are the same thing. Trust and amunah are the same thing. You see, we talked about this the last Shabbat. It is nonsensical in the Abbaid sense for us to believe that this is the word of Yahuwah and trust that this is the word of Yahuwah and not obey it. If we trust that that is the word of Yahuwah, if we believe that that is the word of Yahuwah, then we trust in it. And to trust in it means to obey it. And so that is synonymous almost with Shama, which means to hear and obey. And so those who are truly walking this ancient path, as we talked about last Shabbat, are not double-minded people. We're not double-minded. We trust. We trust him. We trust in him. No matter what, we trust in him in the same way that our ancient fathers trusted in him. For Yahuwah YAHUAH'S, in whom I trust, said unto me, you shall lack nothing. Are you hearing? I don't need your stuff. I don't need your stuff. Because he said if I trust him, I will not lack any good matter. He says this specifically, those who trust him will not be put to shame. But he also says those who walk upright in him, who walk the upright, who walk the ancient path, will lack no good thing. This is nothing new. This is nothing new. And so either you trust that or you don't. Either you trust it or you don't. As for me in my house, we trust it. We trust it. We trust if we walk upright before him, we will lack no good thing, no good matter. We trust it because we trust him with our lives. For Yahuwah YAHUAH'S, in whom I trust, said unto me, you shall lack nothing. You shall lack nothing. This is a benefit for those walking the ancient path. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. For I will barak you in all the works of your hands. This is a benefit to those who are truly walking this ancient path. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Verse 16. And now, therefore, behold, here is all belonging to you. Take your stuff. I don't need it. My YAHUAH'S provides for me. Take your stuff. I don't need it. I don't need it. I just need to walk upright before him and I will lack no good matter. Take here. Take all your stuff. Take it. I don't want it and neither do I need it. And now, therefore, behold, here is all belonging to you. Take it. And go as Yahuwah lives. I will not take from you. From a living soul down to a shoe, he or tie or thread, accepting the expense of the food of those who went out with me to battle, a just and upright man, a righteous and upright man, only taking what he needs, only taking what he needs, and not taking these people's stuff so that they would be esteemed, so that they would somehow say that they are the reason that Abram gained all these riches. They had no part in it. They had no part in the reason that Abraham became a very rich man. It was because those who walk upright in him will lack no good matter. Try him. Try the ancient path and see. As all this portion, as also the portion of the men who went with me, Anar, Ashku, and Mamre, they and their men, as well as those also who had remained to watch the baggage, as well as those who had remained to watch the baggage. You see, this is right ruling. This is Torah. So he even took care of the ones that didn't go out to battle. Those who merely stood by and watched the baggage. He even took care of them. This is Torah. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. This is the ancient path. I recall to mind when our people went out against Midian. And that was a great spoil that was taken from the people of Midian. A great spoil. And Yahuwah gave instruction through Masha to split the spoil up. To split it up between the Kahan, to split it up between the priests. And this is the portion that was given to Yahuwah. And to split it up between the people. The people that didn't go out to battle. To split it up between them. Because we are one people. We are one. We are one body. You see, this teaching about us being one body didn't begin with the Hamashiach. The Hamashiach merely taught us, was merely trying to bring us back to the ancient path. Merely trying to bring us back to the ancient path. One people, one body, one body. Barak Yahuwah. And so what I have, you have, irrespective of whether or not you went out to battle or not. Irrespective of whether or not you went out to battle or not. You see, this is a characteristic of someone operating in the ancient path. Having all things in common. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. You just read it. You just read it. This is a characteristic. What do you think? What do you think that Yahusha was showing you? Showing us. This is the ancient path. Having all things in common. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Having all things in common. They shall take their portion of the spoil. Let me read this again. They and their men, as well as those also who had remained to watch the baggage, they shall take their portion of the spoil, having all things in common, being righteous before men, practicing right ruling. This is Torah. This is the ancient way. This is the ancient path. And the sovereigns of Sodom gave Abram according to all that he had said, and they pressed him to take of whatsoever he chose, but he would not. And he sent away the sovereigns of Sodom and the remainder of their men, and he gave them orders about Lut, and they went to their respective places. He gave them order about Lut. Listen, this is my brother. Don't put your hands on him. Don't put your hands on my brother. You best believe this is what he said. He gave them orders about his son, about his brother Lut. Don't put your hands on him. I will come back again and put my hands on you. Yes. You see, this is another characteristic if you don't understand. You see, his people, those who walk the ancient path, are not effeminate. No, we're not. No, we're not. We're not effeminate people. We're men. Our men are men and our women are women. Yes, we are. We're people of shalom. Abram didn't bother nobody. He didn't bother anyone. Abram was a man of shalom. But when it came time to raise arms, to rescue his brother, he went with 318 men against 800,000. And Yahuwah fought for him. And they smote them. And they smote them. You see, just because we're shalom filled, don't make the mistake of thinking that it is a weakness. It's not a weakness. We're not Christians. We're not effeminate men. We're men of shalom. We're men of shalom. But we will go to war if we have to. We will fight if we have to, especially when it's for righteousness' sake. Yes, we will. Yes, we will. And so, and he sent them away, and he gave them orders about Lut, and they went to their respective places. Verse 19, and Lut, his brother's son, he also sent away with his property, and he went with them. And Lut returned to his home, to Sodom. Again, we talked about this in the first part. Mashpaka, this is just suspect to me. It truly is. It's suspect to me that, I know that there's other grazing land, there's other grazing ground. You don't have to live amongst sodomite. You don't. You don't have to live amongst them. This is just suspect to me. I'm just saying. And Lut, his brother's son, I'm not saying that Lut was a sodomite if you're thinking that. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that those are truly walking this ancient path. I mean, this would make me so uncomfortable unless Abba said, son, I want you to stay there and not move. Under those conditions would I stay. Otherwise, I could not live in a city. My next door neighbor, and the one behind me and the one in front of me are all sodomite. I could not do it. I could not do it unless Yahuwah himself told me to do it. I mean, not even for the sake of having grazing land for my cattle. I could not do it. I could not do it. And he sent away, verse 19 again, and Lut, his brother's son, he also sent away. So this is also an example. I'm just speaking this. I believe Abba is speaking this through me. This is also an example of those who are walking the ancient path and those who are walking this broad path. Those who are walking the ancient path and those who are walking the broad path. Those who are walking the broad path, their possessions, they lead them. They're led by their possessions. And the reason that Lut moved to Sodom because it had nice grazing ground for his flocks. That was the reason. That was the reason that he moved there. But there were other cities of the plains that he could have went to. But he chose this place. He chose this place, and that says a lot. I just had to bring that out. It says a lot. It does. It does. And Lut, his brother's son, he also went away with his property, and he went with them. And Lut returned to his home, to Sodom, and Abram and his people returned to their home in the plains of Mamre, in the plains. They were in the plains away from folk. Yes, they were. Wherefore come out from among them. Be ye separate. Touch not the unclean thing, and I will receive you. He gave this instructions to Abram to come out from among the people, from among the nations. Yes, he did. Yes, he did. And he obeyed. And he obeyed. And Abram and his people returned to their home, to the plains of Mamre, which is in Cabron. At that time, Yahuwah again appeared to Abram at Kabrum. We talked about this in the last message, that Yahuwah loves to appear to those who are walking the ancient path. Yes, he does. He loves to appear to his priests, to his Kohanim. Yes, he does. Did he not? Did he not appear between the two cherubim once a year on Yom Kippurim or Yom Kippur, when the Kohan went beyond the veil into the most kadosh place, which was a foreshadowing of him dwelling in the most kadosh place of the heart? Yes, it was. Yes, it was. He loves to appear to his Kohan. Yes, he does. Yes, he does. He loves to appear to them who are walking the ancient path. Who are walking the ancient path, both to men and women. He loves to appear to them who are walking the ancient path. And at that time, Yahuwah again appeared to Abram in Kabrum. And he said to him, do not fear. Your reward is very great before me. Listen, listen, because this is applicable. Your reward is very great before me. For I will not leave you until I shall have multiplied you and baruch you and made your seed like the stars, the Kukabim and Shamayim, which cannot be measured nor numbered. Indeed, he's told us to be fruitful and to multiply. But this promise is applicable to us with respect to, if we walk this ancient path, then our reward is going to be great. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Does he not promise that he's going to give us crowns? That we're going to rule with him? That we're going to rule the nations with a rod of iron? Yes, it does. Yes, it does. It's in the text. Those who walk the ancient path, this crown, this reward is going to be given to them. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. But it says here, and baruch you and your seed like the stars, the Kukabim and Shamayim, which cannot be measured nor numbered. And I will give unto your seed, and I will give unto your seed all these lands that you see. Now we understand that his seed is not limited to genealogy. That his seed is not limited to flesh. No, it isn't. Because he said what? In Ishkak shall your seed be called. In Ishkak shall your seed be called. Ishkak was not born of flesh. Ishkak was born of Ruch. Yes, he was. He was born from the Jerusalem above. I don't have time to address that. I've talked about this before. But Ishkak was born from the Jerusalem above. He was a citizen from above. He was born of the Ruch, of the free woman. Ishmael was born of the slave woman, was born of the flesh. So the seed of Abraham are not born of the flesh. The seed of Abraham are born of the free woman, are born from the Jerusalem above, are born of Ruach. Yes, we are. Yes, we are born of Ruach. And if we are born of Ruach and truly walk in the ancient path, guess what? Our reward is going to be great. Our reward is going to be great. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Barak Yahuwah. Barak Yahuwah. Verse 21 again. And I will give unto your seed all these lands that you see with your eyes. To them will I give them for an inheritance. How long? Aulam. Forever. Forever. Only be strong and do not fear. Walk before me and be perfect. And be perfect. He says what? Walk before me. We know that that translates into what? Walking the ancient path. Walking the ancient path. Which if we turn neither to the right or to the left of it, we will be perfect and upright before him. Indeed, we talked about this last Shabbat, or it may have been last fourth day, when Yahusha in the 5th chapter of Matthew, he uttered these same words, be perfect, even as your Father in Shamayim is perfect. Now, he spoke these words in the context of obeying the Torah and not discounting even the smallest part, even the yod, not discounting the yod or the tittle of the Torah. And thus be calling what? And thus be called what? Great in the reign of Shamayim. And so he ends that by saying that unless your righteousness exceeds the righteousness of the Pharisees, and we who are following Torah understand what righteousness is in accordance with Deuteronomy, the 6th chapter and the 25th verse, that Torah is our righteousness. Yahuwah, who is the living Torah, the ancient of days, the ancient path, Yahuwah Zarakanu is our righteousness. He is our righteousness. And when we walk this ancient path, when we walk before him, when we walk in him, him in us, and us in him, we will be perfect. We will walk perfect in him, or perfectly in him, and perfect towards him. Yes, we will. Yes, we will. Verse 22. And in the 78th year of the life of Abram, in that year died Ra'u, the son of Palag, and all the days of Pa'u were 239 years, and he died. And Sarai, the daughter of Haran, Abram's woman, was still barren in those days. She did not bear to Abram either son or daughter. And when she saw that she bore no children, she took her handmaid Hagar, whom Parah, we read about this on the 4th day. Hagar was the daughter of Parah. She was his daughter, whom Parah gave to her after that messenger continued to smote him, after he continued to try to lay his hands on Sarai. She took her handmaid Hagar, whom Parah had given her, and she gave her to Abram her man for a woman. For Hagar learned all the ways of Sarai. Listen here. Hagar learned all the ways of Sarai. Hagar learned Torah. Hagar learned the ancient path. She learned the ancient path. She was not a heathen. She learned the ancient path. Yes, she did. And so as Sarah, or Sarai, had a meek and quiet spirit in accordance with Torah, so did she. So did she. She operated in the same way. She operated in the same way. Indeed, the name Hagar means what? Ha meaning the, Ga meaning stranger. The stranger. Hagar means the stranger. This is someone who was a stranger, who came from the nations, who followed the way, who followed the ancient path, who followed the ways everlasting. Yes, she did. Yes, she did. And Sarai, the daughter of Haran, Abram's woman, actually we're at verse 24. And when she saw that she bore no children, she took her handmaid Hagar, which means the stranger, whom Parah had given to her, and she gave her to Abram her man for a woman. And Hagar, the stranger, learned all the ways of Sarai. Of course she did. Of course she did. This is what stranger means. This is what Gar means. A stranger, used in the sense of Gar, means someone like Ruth. Like Ruth, who followed the ancient path, who followed the way everlasting, who followed Torah. This is what Gar means. There's another word for stranger, which means Zur. And this means profane. This means profane. But in terms of one who is sojourning, a sojourner, in terms of a stranger, this word is Gar. G-A-R. Hagar, meaning the stranger. For Hagar learned all the ways. She learned the ancient path from Sarai, as Sarai taught her. And so, as it is written in the Torah, what happens? Women, you are not to teach men. You are to teach women the ancient path. I pray that you're paying attention. You are to teach other women the ancient path. You're not to open your mouth and try and teach men the ancient path. This is not the ancient path if you're operating this way. This is the broad way of Babylon, where this feminist Aizabal spirit has taken over everything. This is not the narrow path. The narrow path is to have a meek and quiet spirit, which is of great value before Elohim, and you are to teach other women the ancient path. Yes, you are. Yes, you are. You are to follow the example of other ancient women, other ancient righteous women like Sarai. Like Sarai. And Sarai, the daughter of Haran, actually verse 24, verse 25. For Hagar learned all the ways of Sarai, as Sarai taught her. She was not in any way deficient in following her good ways. She was not in any way deficient and following her good ways. So she followed the ancient path. She followed the way everlasting as was taught to her from Sarai. She learned how to operate as a handmaid. She learned how to operate as a woman, operating in the ancient path from another woman operating in the ancient path. And so if you are not operating in the ancient path as a woman, how are you going to teach someone else how to operate in the ancient path as a woman? It behooves you to sit quietly at his feet and learn the ancient path before you open your mouth and lead someone astray. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. And Sarai said to Abram, behold, here is my handmaid Hagar, the stranger. Go to her, that she may bring forth upon my knees, that I may also obtain children through her. And at the end of 10 years, Abram's dwelling in the land of Canaan, which is in the 85th year of Abram's life, Sarai gave Hagar unto him, the stranger. And Abram hearkened to the voice of his woman Sarai. And he took his handmaid Hagar, and Abram came to her, and she conceived. And she conceived. Now, she conceived, and this was in accordance with the flesh. She is the bondwoman. Shaul calls her the bondwoman. He calls her the slave woman. Because why? Because the flesh is slavery. The flesh is bondage. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. And all who walk according to the flesh are in bondage. They're still in slavery unto Egypt. And Parah of Pharaoh is their taskmaster, because Pharaoh, Hashatan, he owns the flesh. He is its master, because Adam sold it to him. Yes, he did. He sold it to him. He freely gave it to him. And so Hashatan is still master of Parah of Egypt, which is represented by the flesh. And so we see here, Hagar, she conceived. She was a young and vibrant woman. This was done via the flesh, and she was a bondwoman. So this was done in accordance with the flesh. But as we're going to read later on, when Sarai finally conceives, this is not going to be according to the flesh. This is going to be in accordance with the Ruach, because her womb was dead. Her womb was dead, and Abram was as good as dead. And so this was done in accordance with the Ruach, which was a foreshadowing of the coming Hamashiach, who was also conceived via the Ruach. Via the Ruach. And this is why Ishkak and the Hamashiach were both born on the same day. They were both born on the third day of the 14th, on the third month, and the 14th day of the month, which is Shabu'ut. Which is Shabu'ut. Verse 28. And Abram hearkened to the voice of his woman Sarai, and he took his handmaid Hagar. In the name of Yahushua HaMashiach. Someone just shared something. Someone just shared something. I see your face. Who is that? Is that all Ishaba?
It's me. I'm sorry.
Need you to unshare. Need you to unshare. Someone tell her how to unshare. Verse 28. And Abram hearkened to the voice of his woman Sarai, and he took his handmaid Hagar. And Abram came to her, and she conceived. And Abram came to her, and she conceived. Keep your hands, Miss Parker, as far away from your phones as possible, please. As far away from your phones as possible. We bind all of these birds that are trying to come and snatch the seed from the wayside. We bind them head and foot in the name of Yahushua HaMashiach and cast them out of here. Keep your hands as far away from your phone as possible, please. Barak Yahuwah. And Abram hearkened to the voice of his woman Sarai, and he took his handmaid Hagar. And Abram came to her, and she conceived. And when Hagar saw that she had conceived, she celebrated greatly, and her mistress was despised in her eyes. And she said within herself, this can only be that I am better before Elohim than Sarai, my mistress. For all the days that my mistress has been with my master, she did not conceive. But me, Yahuwah, has caused in so short a time to conceive by him. Verse 30. And when Sarai saw that Hagar had conceived by Abram, Sarai was jealous of her handmaid. Sarai said within herself, this is surely nothing else but that she must be better than I am. Now, Mashpaka, never mind, I'll keep going. Verse 31. And Sarai said unto Abram, I am going to stop right there because it's not becoming for a woman to be jealous. It's not becoming for a woman to be jealous. When we read about jealousy, when we read about the jealous husband who suspects his wife in the Torah of committing adultery against him, a spirit of jealousy has come before him. He suspects his wife of committing adultery. It says something about the woman, and that he's to take his wife before the Kahan, and she is to swear that she is not lain with any other man, and she is to drink bitter water. And if she had indeed lain with another man, then her stomach would swell and her thighs would rot, and she would never have children again. But if she had not lain with a man, then she would be fine, that she would bear children. But there we read about the spirit of jealousy coming upon a man, not a woman. And so it's very unbecoming for a spirit of jealousy to come upon women. Women are not made to be jealous. Women are not made to be jealous. And so when there is a spirit of jealousy present in women, it's got to be prayed against. This is not becoming of a woman. This is not becoming of a woman. It's not becoming. Verse 31. And Sarai said unto Abram, my wrong be upon you. For at the time when you did pray before Yahuwah for children, why did you not pray on my account that Yahuwah should give me seed from you? And when I speak to Hagar in your presence, she despises my words, because she has conceived, and you will say nothing to her. May Yahuwah judge between me and you for what you have done to me. And Abram said to Sarai, behold, your handmaid is in your hand. Behold, your handmaid is in your hand, a righteous and upright man. Do unto her as it may seem good in your eyes. And Sarai afflicted her, and Hagar fled from her to the wilderness. And Hagar fled from her to the wilderness. Now, it was well within Sarai's right to afflict her servant. Yes, it was. Yes, it was. It was well within her right to afflict her because of what she had done. It was well within her right to afflict her. This was right ruling. This was right ruling. This was right ruling to correct her servant. Yes, it was. Yes, it was. This was right ruling. This indeed was right ruling, and she was well within her right to afflict her. This doesn't mean that she beat her. No, it doesn't. This is not chattel slavery. We don't treat servants that way, walking the ancient path. So it doesn't mean that she beat her, but she had every right to afflict her. She had every right to afflict her. Yes, she does. Yes, she did. Now, you make the mistake. You make the mistake as a servant, and you misbehave before Yahuwah. And watch and see if he doesn't pull out the Shabbat, the rod of punishment, and afflict you. Watch and see if he doesn't afflict you. Yes, he will. Yes, he will. Yes, he will. So she was well within her right to afflict her. And Hagar fled from her to the wilderness. And a messenger of Yahuwah found her in the place where she had fled by a well, and said to her, do not fear, for I will multiply your seed, for you shall bear a son, and you shall call his name Ishmael. Now then, return to Sarai your mistress, and submit yourself under her hands. Submit yourself under her hands. Had Sarai been wrong? And this messenger may likely have not have told her to return. But she had every right as her master, as her mistress, to afflict her. Yes, she did. Yes, she did. And Hagar called the place of that well Ba'al-Chai Roi. Ba'al-Chai Roi. It is between Kadesh and the wilderness of Barad. And Hagar at that time returned to her master's house. And at the end of days, Hagar bore a son to Abram. And Abram called his name Ishmael. And Abram was 86 years old when he begot him. Let's turn to chapter 17. Chapter 17. And in those days, in the 91st year of the life of Abram, the children of Kittim made war with the children of Tubal. For when Yahuwah had scattered the sons of men upon the face of the earth, the children of Kittim went and embodied themselves in the plain of Canupiah. And they built themselves cities there and dwelt by the river Tibra'u. And the children of Tubal dwelt in Tuscanah, and their boundaries reached the river Tibra'u. And the children of Tubal built a city in Tuscanah, and they called the name Sabinah, after the name of Sabinah, son of Tubal, their father, and they dwelt there unto this day. And it was at that time the children of Kittim made war with the children of Tubal, and the children of Tubal were smitten before the children of Kittim. And the children of Kittim caused 370 men to fall from the children of Tubal. And at that time the children of Tubal swore to the children of Kittim, saying, You shall not intermarry amongst us, and no man shall give his daughter to any of the sons of Kittim. For all the daughters of Tubal were in those days fair, for no woman were found in the whole earth so fair as the daughters of Tubal. I'm going to skip, Mr. Parker. I'm going to skip. If you want to read this on your own, go ahead and read that. But I'm going to skip down because we're looking at Abram. We're looking at Abram. We're not looking at Kittim. We're not looking at Tubal. We're looking at Abram, our righteous father. We're looking at his walk and how he walked the ancient path. So we're going to pick this up at verse 16. At verse 16. And Abram, the son of Terah, was 99 years old. At that time, Yahuwah appeared to him and said to him, I will make my covenant between me and you, and I will greatly multiply your seed. As we're going to learn later on in this teaching, as we walk with Abram, the ancient path, we're going to understand that this covenant that was made with Abram was made in accordance with the ancient path. Yes, it was. It was made on the day of Shabbat. He made this covenant with Abram on the day of Shabbat. I was going to show this further down as we get into this teaching. He's going to show us this. But this covenant was made on the day of Shabbat. And so this too is part of walking this ancient path, keeping the feast days. Because as we're going to see, our righteous ancient fathers, they all kept it. They all kept the feast days and walking this narrow path and walking this ancient path. Indeed, they didn't just keep the feast days, but they kept the feast days in Ruach and in truth, understanding what the feast days meant and what they pointed towards. Not just showing up for some enjoyment and some food and drink, but understanding what these feast days represented and what they pointed towards. They understood. And those walking the ancient path, they too understand. And this is the covenant which I make between me and you, that every male child be circumcised, you and your seed after you, you and your seed after you. At 8 days old shall it be circumcised. At 8 days old shall it be circumcised. This is given for an everlasting covenant. And so our 8-day-old sons must still be circumcised in the flesh. They must still be circumcised in the flesh. We know that. We know that that through circumcision of the flesh, of the foreskin of the flesh, which our ancestors, with our fathers, which they had, this can be bondage, which it was bondage for them. It was a heavy burden for them. Why? Because the flesh is bondage. The flesh is slavery. The flesh cannot keep Torah. It cannot. It will not. It does not want to. It does not want to. And we understand that deliverance must occur via a circumcision. Yes, it is. Yes, it does. Deliverance must occur via a circumcision. And thus, when a 8-day-old child is circumcised, if Abba takes that child is going to be delivered. that child is going to be delivered. That newborn child as a babe is going to be delivered. You see, that is the way that Yahuwah wants us to be, just like newborn babes. And thus, when they are circumcised and brought into everlasting covenant, they are delivered. They are delivered. Now, when they grow up, when the same children, when they grow up and are reborn as newborn babes, and are reborn, provided that they are reborn as newborn babes. When we are reborn as newborn babes, we must be circumcised, but not with a circumcision made by hands. A circumcision not made with hands, upon the human heart. Upon the human heart. And this is the circumcision. This is that sign of the everlasting covenant that will gain us everlasting life. Because this circumcision will give us the ability and the willingness to walk in covenant with Yahuwah, to walk the ancient path, to turn neither to the right or to the left of it, which the circumcision of the flesh could not and cannot do. Could not and cannot do. And so for our 8-day-year-old sons, when they are circumcised, they are indeed in covenant. They are indeed in covenant, and they will receive everlasting life as children, because only such as those will enter into everlasting life. Only such as them will enter into everlasting life. And now therefore, let me read verse 18 again. At 8 days old shall it be circumcised, and this covenant shall be in your flesh for an everlasting covenant. For an everlasting covenant. And now therefore, your name shall be no more called Abram, but Abraham. But Abraham. Abram means exalted father. Ram meaning exalted. Ab meaning father. So his name now is changed to Abraham. Abraham. Raham being many, or it indicates many. It indicates many, and the indication is many nations. Many nations. So Abraham, and your woman shall no more be called Sharai, but Shara. Shara. And Shara means prince or princess. Shara means princess. It means princess. Just as Yashar means prince of Elohim, Shara means prince or princess. Barak Yahuwah. So we're all going to inherit, both male and female, at the recreation of all things, where we will once again be co-rulers of the Yarah's, and we will co-reign with our Father throughout eternity, both male and female. For I will barak you both. For I will barak you both. And I will multiply your seed after you, that you shall become a great nation, and sovereigns shall come forth from you. And sovereigns shall come forth from you. Indeed. This through Yasha'al, the rule and the reign of the Yarah's is being restored to Adam. Through Yasha'al, the rule and the reign of the Yarah's is being restored to Adam. This is why the Torah, the ancient path, was given through Masha to this nation, so that this nation would walk the ancient path, and so that this nation of priests would be lights to the Gentiles. Indeed, we are the light of the world. We would be lights to the Gentiles, so that we would take the message of repentance to them in the same way that Nuach and Methuselah did, so that we would be able to teach them the ancient path. Teach them the ancient path, whereby then, through the Hamashiach, that they would become branches and become engrafted into the house of Yasha'al, whereby becoming adopted sons, whereby becoming no different than the native born, whereby becoming fellow Yashralim. Yasha'al again being prince of Elohim, or it means to rule with Elohim. And so through us, the rulership of the Yarah's is being restored to Adam. It's being restored to Adam. Indeed, it began in Yaqub. It began with Yaqub. It began with Jacob. What does Jacob mean? What does Yaqub mean? Yaqub means supplanter. And so through this nation, the rulership of the Yarah's, Hashatan's rulership, is being supplanted. It is being supplanted. Barak Yahuwah. Chapter 18, beginning at verse 1. And Abram rose and did all that Elohim had ordered him. Here's another characteristic. Here's another characteristic. Those who walk in this ancient path, why do you think we are commanded to not turn to the right or to the left of this ancient path? Because we're commanded to obey every word that proceeds from his mouth. If we obey every word that proceeds from his mouth, then what? We would turn neither to the right or to the left, but we will stay firmly implanted in the ancient path, in the way everlasting. And so here's another characteristic of one walking the ancient path. We obey the voice of Yahuwah. We obey the Torah. We obey the Ancient of Days. We walk the ancient path. And Abram rose and did all that Elohim had ordered him. I want to read this again. And Abram rose and did all that Elohim had ordered him. Not partial, not half, not a quarter, not part, but all that Elohim had ordered him. I call your attention again. We are to obey every word that proceeds from the mouth of Yahuwah. And he took the men of his household and those bought with his money, and he circumcised them as Yahuwah had commanded him. And again, as we get further along in this teaching, you're going to understand that this took place on Shabu'ut. The covenant is always renewed on Shabu'ut. It is always renewed on Shabu'ut. It was renewed with Nuach on Shabu'ut, and it was renewed with Abram on Shabu'ut. And as we read on, you're going to find out that it was renewed with Ishkak on Shabu'ut, and it was renewed finally once and for all through Yahushua HaMashiach on Shabu'ut. Yes, it was. Yes, it was. And so this is all part of that ancient path. This is all part of that narrow path, that ancient path. All of this is a part of it. Verse 2. And there was not one left whom he did not circumcise. And Abram and his son Ishmael were circumcised in the flesh of their foreskin. 13 years old was Ishmael when he was circumcised in the flesh of his foreskin. And in the third day, Abram went out of his tent and sat at the door to enjoy the heat of the sun during the pain of his flesh. This is when you read the book of Genesis, it doesn't say this in detail, but this is why Abram was sitting outside of his tent when Yahuwah manifested in the person of Yahusha and came to visit him on the way to destroy Sodom and Amorah. And so he was sitting out there because he was in pain. He was sitting in the sun, getting the healing rays of the sun because he was in pain. And in the third day, Abram went out of his tent and sat at the door to enjoy the heat of the sun during the pain of his flesh. And Yahuwah appeared to him in the plain of Mamre and sent 3 of his ministering messengers to visit him. And he was sitting at the door of the tent. Now this reads quite differently than the book of Barashith. In the book of Barashith, which I hold more dearly, for lack of a better term. I'm looking for the words. I adhere to Barashith more so than Yashar. I pray that when you read these books, that you're able to chew the meat and spit out the bones. Not to say that this is not scripture, but we must have witnesses. Out of the mouth of 2 or more witnesses, let every matter be established. And so in the book of Barashith, it tells us that it was Yahuwah that appeared to him in one of those 3 persons. And this is what I believe, that he appeared to him, that he manifested in the person of Yahusha as the messenger of the present, and came and talked to Abram in the plains of Mamre as he was recovering from his circumcision. And Yahuwah appeared to him in the plain of Mamre and sent 3 of his ministering messengers to visit him. And he was sitting at the door of the tent, and he lifted his eyes and saw, and lo, 3 men was coming from a distance. And he rose up and ran to meet them, and bowed down to them, and brought them into his house. Now, here is another characteristic of someone walking the ancient path. They are very hospitable. They are very hospitable and willing to entertain strangers, willing to feed and clothe and entertain strangers. This didn't just start in the Torah of Moshe. This started long before that. The Torah is everlasting. The Torah is everlasting. And so this is another characteristic of someone walking the ancient path. They are very hospitable. Is it not written via the words of Shaul that an elder should be one who is able to entertain, who is hospitable to others? Yes, it does. It says this. It says this. And so this is another characteristic of someone operating or walking the ancient path. They should be hospitable. They should be hospitable. So it reads here, and Yahuwah appeared to him in the plain of Mamre and sent 3 of his ministering messengers to visit him. And he was sitting at the door of the tent, and he lifted his eyes and saw, and the 3 men were coming from a distance. And he rose up and ran to meet them, and he bowed down to them. Here is another characteristic. We are humble. We are humble. We operate in humility. Those who walk the ancient path operate in humility as servants. As servants, because indeed to obey means to what? Means to submit. It means to submit. It means to serve. And so you cannot walk the ancient path without being a servant, without being a humble servant, as humble as a sheep, without being a humble servant. And so this is another characteristic here of walking the ancient path. One must be humble. This indeed is the same ancient path that Yahushua HaMashiach himself walked, who being in the form of Elohim, did not consider it robbery to be equal with Elohim, but humbled himself, even to death on the stake, even to death on the stake. This is the ancient path. Those who are walking the ancient path walk in humility. We walk in humility. We're not puffed up. We walk in humility, and we fight tooth and nail to stay and to walk in humility. We pray for humility. We pray for meekness and humility, that it would pour out of our pores. And he bowed down to them and brought them into his house, very hospitable and humble. And he said to them, if now I have found favor in your sight, turn in and eat a morsel of bread. And he pressed them, and they turned in and he gave them water, and they washed their feet, and he placed them under a tree at the door of the tent. I pray that you're paying attention. This is the ancient path. And Abraham ran and took a calf, tender and good, and he hastened to kill it, and he gave it to his servant Al-Azar to dress. And Abram came to Sarah into the tent, and he said to her, make ready quickly 3 measures of fine meal, knead it, and make cakes to cover the pot containing the meat. What did she do? And she did so. And she did so. Here is an example of a righteous woman following the ancient path. She is meek. She is humble. She has a meek and a quiet spirit. And she submits. She silently submits. And she obeys her master. She obeys her husband without question. Yes, she does. Yes, she does. It says here, and she did so. And she did so. And Abram hastened and brought before them butter and milk, beef and mutton, and gave it before them to eat before the flesh of the calf was sufficiently done. And they did eat. And when they had done eating, one of them said to him, I will return to you according to the time of life, and Sarah, your woman, shall have a son. Now, as we go on in this teaching, you're going to find out that that time of life is Shabu'ut. It's Shabu'ut. Now, this is the time. Now, remember, Abram was circumcised on Shabu'ut, and they appeared to him around that time, around Shabu'ut. And so they're telling him around this time, next year, we're going to visit, and your woman is going to have a son on Shabu'ut. This is going to make sense as we get further down into his teaching. Not today, but we're going to get further into this teaching. You're going to understand this. This is the ancient path. This is the ancient path. The ancient path is what? The ancient path is order. The ancient path is order. It is orderly. It is order because Torah is order, and Torahlessness is disorder. So the ancient path is order, and that's another characteristic. It's not here, but I'm giving you a bonus. Those who walk the ancient path, their lives must be orderly. Their lives must be orderly. Indeed, if they're walking the ancient path, their lives are orderly. There's no chaos in their lives. Their lives are orderly. You cannot operate in chaos and say that you're walking the ancient path. Disorder is chaos. Disorder is Torahlessness. Order is Torah. Order is Torah. Where the head of woman is man, and the head of man is the Hamashiach. It's the Hamashiach. This just didn't start in the Ba'it Kadashah. It didn't just start there. No, it didn't. No, it didn't. I pray you see an example in Abraham and Sharai, who called him master. I pray that you understand it, that you're seeing this. Barak Yahuwah, there must be order. There must be Torah. Torah is order. Disorder is Torahlessness. It is chaos. And so verse 9 again here. And when they had done eating, one of them said to him, I will return to you according to the time of life, and Sharai your woman shall have a son. And the men afterward departed and went their ways to the places to which they were sent. To the places to which they were sent. Now, we understand that by reading the book of Genesis, that this is the place where Abram began to do what? He began to plead with Yahuwah on behalf of the lives of those who were in Sodom. You see, this is what a Kahan does. Yes, it is. So if you're walking the ancient path in Ruach and in truth, whereby now you have been immersed in the Ruach HaKadosh, and whereby now you are Kahan in the order of Melchizedek, guess what? That means that now you are an intercessor. That means that you are to be an intercessor. That means that you are to be the one to what? To stand in the breach, to stand in the gap, and to intercede on behalf of those who cannot pray for themselves. Now, Abram here, being a Kahan in the order of Melchizedek, he began to intercede for those homosexuals. Yes, he did. He interceded for homosexuals. Yes, he did. Because Lut was one man and his wife was one man. He had 2 daughters and he had some possessions. But he began to plead on behalf of Sodom, on behalf of 50 people. And then it dwindled down to 10. And so he was interceding as a Kahan on behalf of these homosexuals. Oh, it blows my mind. It blows my mind. But this is a characteristic of someone who is walking this ancient path. If you are Kahan, you are to intercede for the nations. You are to intercede on behalf of those who cannot intercede for themselves. And we see this example in the example of our righteous father, Abraham, in the book of Bereshith. It doesn't say it here, but we should all be familiar with that, how he interceded for them. He interceded for them. Now, if Yahuwah had found 10 righteous people in that place, he was going to spare the whole city. So you can say he was only praying on behalf of the righteous. But if Abba had found 10 righteous beings in that city, he was going to spare the whole city for on the account of 10 righteous beings. On the account of 10 righteous beings. Here's another characteristic. Yahuwah will spare those around us on behalf of the righteous. He will spare those around us on behalf of the righteous. We're going to see this as we continue to read. He will spare those around the righteous for the sake of the righteous. For the sake of the righteous. But you know what? In these end times, he is warning his righteous. He is warning his people right now. He warned us thousands of years ago. He warned us in Kazun, in Revelation, the 18th chapter. He says, no. Come out of her. Come out of her, my people, lest you receive of her plagues and take part in her crimes. Come out of her. Come out of her. No, I know that, some are kept on behalf for the sake of the righteous, but I'm warning you beforehand. I'm warning you beforehand that I'm getting ready to send down judgment. That I'm getting ready to send down fire on that place, on Babylon. So you come out of her. You come out of her. And so this is not applicable to these end times for what is coming upon this earth. He is calling us out. He is calling us out. Wherefore come out from among them. Be ye separate, touch not the unclean thing, and I will receive you. He is calling us out. Yes, he is. Like he called Abram out. Like he called him out of Babylon. He is calling us out in this season. Yes, he is. Yes, he is. Let me read here, verse 11. And in those days, all the people of Sodom and Amorah and all the whole 5 cities were exceedingly wicked and criminal against Yahuwah. And they provoked Yahuwah with their abominations. And they strengthened in aging abominably and scornfully before Yahuwah. And their wickedness and crimes were in those days great before Yahuwah. And they had in their land a very extensive valley, about half a day's walk. And in it there were fountains of water and a great deal of herbage surrounding the water. And all the people of Sodom and Amorah went there 4 times in the year with their women and children and all belonging to them. And they celebrated with their timbrels and dances. And in the time of celebrating, they would all rise and lay hold of their neighbors' women. This is the broad path. This is the broad path. This is the Torahless path. They would all lay hold of their neighbors' women and some of the virgin daughters of their neighbors, and they enjoyed them. And each man saw his woman and daughters in the hands of his neighbor and did not say a word. And they did so from morning to night. And they afterwards returned home, each man to his house and each woman to her tent. So they always did 4 times in the year. And when a stranger came into their cities, we're told to entertain strangers, those who are walking in the ancient path. But when a stranger came into their cities and brought goods which he had purchased with a view to dispose of there, the people of the cities would assemble, men, women, and children, young and old, and go to the man and take his goods by force, giving a little to each man, until there was an end to all the goods of the owner which he had brought into the land. And if the owner of the goods quarreled with them, saying, what is this work which you have done to me? Then they would approach to him one by one, and one would show to him little which he took, and taunt him, saying, I only took that little which you did give me. And when he heard this from them all, he would arise and go from them in sorrow and bitterness of soul. And when they would all arise and go after him and drive him out of the city, which grew with great noise and tumult. And there was a man from the country of Elam, who was leisurely going on the road, seated upon his ass, which he carried a fine mantle of diverse colors, and the mantle was bound with a cord upon the ass. And the man was on his journey passing through the street of Sodom, when the sun set in the evening, and he remained there in order to abide during the night, but no one would let him into his house. And at that time there was in Sodom a wicked and mischievous man, one sinful to do evil, and his name was Hadad. I'm not going to continue reading this. If you want to continue reading this talks about the exceedingly wicked, the nature of the wickedness that was going on in Sodom. You can continue to read that at your own leisure. Actually, I was only supposed to read through verse 11 anyway. My apologies, Ms. Proctor. I was only supposed to read through verse 11 anyway, and then go to chapter 19. Barak Yahuwah. Thank you, Abba. So turning to chapter 19. Turning to chapter 19 of Yashar. Beginning at verse 1. Actually, let me make sure. Nope, chapter 20. Turn to chapter 20. Not going to read chapter 19. Turn to chapter 20. We're following Abram. We're not following the wicked. We're following Abram. Turn to chapter 20. And at that time, Abram journeyed from the plain of Mamre, and he went to the land of the Philistine, and he dwelt in Gerar. It was in the 25th year of Abram's being in the land of Canaan, and the 100th year of the life of Abram, that he came to Gerar in the land of the Philistines. If you understand, Mashpaka, every place where Abram sojourned, every place where Ishak sojourned, and where Jacob sojourned, this was the land that Yahuwah had given to us, given to our ancestors. And this is why he spoke these words to Yahusha, commonly called Joshua. He said, every place where your feet touch the soil, he says, I have given to you. Because indeed he had, because every place where his feet was going to touch was the land where Abram sojourned, where he sojourned at. Now, I pray you understand this, that in the beginning, Yahuwah gave the Arats to Abram, to Adam. He gave the whole of the Arats to Adam. So I pray that you understand that even our dispersal, that even our scattering into the nations is strategic. It is strategic. Because why? Because every place where we are sojourning, every place where our feet is touching the soil, he's giving to us. As the earth is being restored to us, every place. This is why we're in the four corners of the earth. We're in every nation. We are in every nation. Yes, we are. We are in every nation. And so every place where our feet is touching the soil is being restored to us. It is being restored when we're going to rule the Arats. When we're going to rule the Arats. So verse 2 here. And when they entered the land, he said to Sarai, his woman, say you are my sister to anyone that shall ask you, in order that we may escape the evil of the inhabitants of the land. Indeed, it was mentioned, I believe it was last Shabbat, that just because we're walking the ancient path doesn't mean that we're not going to have bouts of fear. We don't walk in fear. We don't operate in fear. No, we don't. It is impossible for us to stay in fear and operate in fear, because fear is the absence of trust. And the text says that Abram trusted Yahuwah. Yes, he did. But that is not to say that sometimes we're not going to have bouts of fear. Sometimes we do. Sometimes we do. That's why we must always walk in the Ruach, so that we do not give in to the sinful desires of the flesh. And when they entered the land, he said to Sarai, his woman, say you are my sister to anyone that asks you, in order that we may escape the evil of the inhabitants of the land. He's repeating the same thing that he done in Mashraim. And as Abram was dwelling in the land of the Philistines, the servants of Abimelech, sovereign of the Philistines, saw that Sarai was exceedingly beautiful. Now at this time, Sarai is 90 years old. She's about 90 years old at this time. And she was still exceedingly beautiful. She was still kept. Does it not say that he would restore our youth? Does it not say that he would restore our youth? Yes, it does. Yes, it does. He will restore our youth. He will restore our countenance if we are walking in this ancient path. I know that you can see. I know that you can see, Mashpaka, that the countenance that's on someone who is walking this ancient path is different than someone who is walking the broad path. You ought to be able to see that countenance, the difference in the countenance of someone who is walking the ancient path between someone who is walking the broad path. There is a difference. There is a difference in the countenance on these people. Yes, there is. Yes, there is. And so Sarai was 90 years old. 90 years old, and these men still wanted her. They still wanted her. Barak Yahuwah, there's a saying amongst us that good black don't crack. I guess this is what happened with Sarai. Good black don't crack. Barak Yahuwah. And as Abraham was dwelling in the land of the Philistines, the servants of Abimelech, sovereign of the Philistines, saw that Sarai was exceedingly beautiful. And they asked Abraham concerning her, and he said, she is my sister. And the servants of Abimelech went to Abimelech, saying, a man from the land of Canaan is come to dwell in the land, and he has a sister that is exceeding fair, exceedingly beautiful. And Abimelech heard the words of his servants, who praised Sarai to him. And Abimelech sent his officers, and they brought Sarai to the sovereign. And Sarai came to the house of Abimelech, and the sovereign saw that Sarai was beautiful. Again, I call your attention, she was 90 years old. At this time, she was 90 years old. And she pleased him exceedingly. And he approached her and said to her, what is that man to you with whom you did come to our land? And Sarai answered and said, He is my brother. Once again, as a dutiful, obedient daughter of Zion, she does what? She obeys her husband. She obeys her master. And we came from the land of Canaan to dwell wherever we could find a place. And Abimelech said to Sarai, Behold, my land is before you. Place your brother in any part of this land that pleases you, and it will be our duty to exalt and elevate him above all the people of the land, since he is your brother. Here's another characteristic. The favor of Yahuwah rests upon them that walk the ancient path. The favor of Yahuwah rests upon them that walk this ancient path. Yes, it does. Yes, it does. And Abimelech sent to Abraham, and Abraham came to Abimelech. And Abimelech said to Abraham, Behold, I have given orders that you shall be honored as you desire on account of your sister Sarai. And Abraham went forth from the sovereign, and the sovereign's presence followed him. And at evening time, before him lie down to rest, the sovereign was sitting upon his throne, and a deep sleep fell upon him. And he lay upon the throne and slept till morning. And he dreamed that a messenger of Yahuwah came to him with a drawn sword in his hand. And the messenger stood over Abimelech and wished to slay him with the sword. And the sovereign was terrified in his dream, and said to the messenger, And what have I committed crime against you, that you come to slay me with your sword? And the messenger answered and said to Abimelech, Behold, you die on account of the woman which you did yesterday night bring into your house. For she is a married woman, the woman of Abraham, who came to your house. Now therefore return that man his woman, for she is his woman. And should you not return her, know that you will surely die, you and all belonging to you. Indeed, here is another characteristic of those walking the ancient path. Yahuwah himself does fight for us. Yahuwah himself does protect us. Yahuwah himself does go before us. Yes, he does. Yes, he does. I believe this. I believe this with my whole heart, that he still fights for those who walk the ancient path. He fights for us. His provision, his protection rests upon us. Indeed, it is written that the messengers of Yahuwah encamp around them who reverence him. Yes, it does. It is written. Yes, it is. And so this is another characteristic of them walking this ancient path, that the favor and the protection of Yahuwah rest upon them. And on that night, there was a great outcry in the land of the Philistines. And the inhabitants of the land saw the figure of a man standing with a drawn sword in his hand, and smote the inhabitants of the land with the sword. Yea, he continued to smite them. And the messenger of Yahuwah smote the whole land of the Philistine on that night. And there was a great confusion on that night and on the following morning. And every womb was closed, and all their issues, and the hand of Yahuwah was upon them on account of Sarai, woman of Abraham, whom Abimelech had taken. And in the morning Abimelech rose with terror and confusion, and with great dread. And he sent and had his servants called in, and he related his dream to them. And the people were greatly afraid. And one man standing amongst the servants of the sovereign answered the sovereign, saying, O sovereign, restore this woman to her man, for he is her man. For the like happened to the sovereign of Mashraim when this man came to Mashraim. And he said concerning his woman, She is my sister, for such is his manner of doing when he comes to dwell in the land which he is a stranger. And Pa'ah sent and took his woman for a woman, and Yahuwah brought upon him grievous plagues until he returned the woman to her man. Now therefore, O sovereign Malak, know what happened yesterday night to the whole land, for there was a great consternation and great pain and lamentation, and we know that it was on account of the woman which you did take. Do you not understand, Muspaka, that Yasha'al is the woman? It's written, Revelation 12. Yasha'al is the woman. And so, do you not understand that Yasha'al came to fight for his woman at Masra'im and smote all the firstborn? And smote all the firstborn of Masra'im about his woman? Yes, he did. Yes, he did. He smote all the firstborn sons of Masra'im about his woman, Yasha'al. Yes, he did. Yes, he did. He fights for us. He fights for us. The reason that he doesn't fight for many now is because they're not walking in covenant with him. Because they're not walking the ancient path. But the minute we walk the ancient path and aspire to walk closely in covenant with him, he fights for us. He wars for us. He goes before us. He provides for us and will withhold no good matter from us. No, he won't. No, he won't. Try him. Try him. Try walking the ancient path without turning to the right or to the left. Try him, oh, taste and see that the master is good. Try him and see. Try him and see. And he said concerning his woman, she is my sister, for such is his manner of doing when he comes to dwell in the land in which he is a stranger. And Pa'ah sent and took his woman for a woman, and Yahuwah brought upon him grievous plagues until he returned the woman to her man. Indeed, this is what happened. This is what happened when our ancestors were in Egypt. He sent grievous plagues upon Pa'ah. Yes, he did. Grievous plagues until Pa'ah did what? Returned the woman to her man. Let my woman go and come and worship me in the wilderness. Yes, he did. Yes, he did. Let my woman go and return and come and worship me in the wilderness. If you don't let my woman go, if you don't let my son go, I'm gonna kill your son. I'm gonna kill your son. I'm gonna send grievous plagues, and I'm gonna force you to let my woman go and come out to her man in the wilderness. He did it. Yes, he did. Yes, he did. Oh, when you get this, Zion, when you get this, when you understand the benefits of being his woman, when you understand the benefits of being his son and walking in close covenant with him and walking that ancient path, you ain't seen nothing. The earth hasn't seen nothing yet. You wait till his people on one accord began to walk this ancient path in ruach and in truth. You wait and see. The earth ain't seen nothing yet. They ain't seen nothing yet. The majority of people, unfortunately, who are aspiring to walk this ancient path, as Abba has told us, are walking with no oil in their lamps. They don't have no oil. They don't have no oil. And you cannot walk this path without having oil in your lamp. Now, therefore, O sovereign, Malak, know what happened yesterday night in the whole land. For there was great consternation and great pain and lamentation. And we know that it was on account of the woman, Yasha'al. I pray you understand what this is pointing towards. The woman, Yasha'al, which you did take. Now, therefore, he doesn't play about his woman. He doesn't play about his son. If his woman, if his son is obedient to him, what do you think the Torah is in place for? Children, obey your parents. Obey your parents. Honor your parents, so that your days may be prolonged in the land. This is an instruction that talks to us to do what? To obey our father. To obey our father. And this is why the woman is to submit and to obey her husband, as if she is submitting and obeying the Hamashiach. Because this is ultimately who we are to bow to and submit to. And if we operate as his woman with a meek and quiet spirit, because we're quiet people. Yes, we are. Yes, we are. We are a kakam and a quiet people. A quiet people, a meek and quiet people, until we have to fight. Until we have to fight. We don't start no trouble. We're people of shalom. We don't start no trouble. We don't start any trouble. But if you start trouble with us, we will defend ourselves. We will defend ourselves. But here's the thing that we also have to understand. I just want to veer off just a minute. But when we act like his woman, when we act like his wife, he takes care of his wife. And he will send plagues upon the head of Egypt on behalf of his wife. And he will send plagues upon the head of Egypt, upon the land of Egypt, Mashraim, on behalf of his obedient son. Yes, he will. Yes, he will. But we must walk in close covenant with him. And I lost my train of thought where I was going. Barak Yahuwah, I pray, brings me back to it. But we must walk in close covenant with him. If we do so, he will fight for us. He will fight for us. And he's waiting for a people in this season to come back to the ancient path so that he can show the world, who is his wife, so that he can show the world who is his son, so that he can make a distinction between his wife and between his son, so as to not esteem us, but so that through us, when the world begins to see that he makes a distinction, that the world will begin to take a hold of our garment, that the world will come out of darkness into its marvelous light, and that they too will want to walk the ancient path. But I recall when I was going, the place where I was going, Abba just brought it back to my remembrance, is that our people, they warred against the people who were in their land because they were in their land. They had no business being there. And those people were accursed. These were the sons of Cam. And the sons of Cam, who were the sons of Canaan, Canaan was cursed. Canaan was cursed because he settled in a land that was not his. And so our people went through that land and they slaughtered, and they were supposed to slaughter and annihilate all of the sons of Canaan from being in their land. Indeed, the sons of Canaan were accursed, and they represented the cursed sons of Hashatan. The cursed sons of Hashatan. I say that for a reason. And the reason I say that is because if you don't understand that we are a warrior people, we are people of shalom, but we fight when we have to. And I say that because just like our people under the leadership of Masha had to fight their way into the promised land, you better understand that we are going to have to fight our way back into the promised land, both spiritually and physically. We're going to have to fight our way back into the promised land. Yes, we are. There's nothing new under the sun. This is going to be repeated. We're going to have to fight our way back into the promised land. And so we are a people not made up of effeminate men. No, we're not. We are not effeminate men. We are men. And our women are women. The women are not trying to be women, not trying to be men. And the men are not trying to be women. We respect our roles. We walk in our roles. This is the ancient path. Barak Yahuwah. So I stopped off at I'm going to start at verse 24. And Abimelech said to them, what is this work? Actually, verse 23. Now therefore restore the woman to her man, lest it should befall us as it did Pharaoh of Parah, sovereign of Mashraim, and his subjects, and that we may not die. And Abimelech hastened and called out, and Shara called for. And again, these plagues that are coming upon Egypt again, that are coming upon the beast kingdom, this is coming upon Hashatan. This is coming upon the beast to do what? To cause him to let his woman go. The rest, the ones that did not go into the wilderness, the ones that were not called in the number of 144,000, when the dragon turned and went to war with the remnant of her seed, the remnant of the 144,000. And so when the dragon turns to go to war against those who were not drawn to the wilderness, who were not part of the 144,000, there are plagues that are coming upon Egypt. There are plagues that are coming upon the beast system. Indeed, in the book of 2 Esdras, it says that plagues are coming to Egypt a second time. And so these plagues are coming upon Egypt a second time to do what? To cause them to let his woman go. Because out of the great distress, a great multitude is coming. In accordance with Revelation chapter 7, out of the great distress, a great multitude is coming from every tribe, tongue, and nation. This is when Ephraim, the completeness of the nations, is coming home. This is when his wife, his wife is coming home. And so these plagues are to curse or to come against the head of Pharaoh, the beast, in order to cause him to let his woman go. And Abimelech said to Abram, actually, let me finish reading verse 25. I keep getting off. And Abram said, let me go to 24. And Abimelech said to them, what is this work you have been doing and saying, you are brother and sister, and I took this woman for a woman? And Abram said, because I thought I should suffer a death on account of my woman. And Abimelech took flocks and herds and men servants and maid servants and 1,000 pieces of silver, and he gave them to Abram, and he returned Sarai to him. So just like Pharaoh gave him great riches, and just like our ancestors left Masraim with great riches, because the wealth of the wicked is stored up for the righteous. The wealth of the wicked is stored up for the righteous. Those who are truly walking this ancient path, he will withhold no good matter. He will exalt us. He will provide for us. He will exalt us. Yes, he will. Yes, he will. And Abimelech said to Abraham, behold, the whole land is before you. Dwell in it wherever you shall choose. And Abraham and Sarai, his woman, went forth from the sovereign's presence with honor and respect. And they dwelt in the land, even in Gerar. And all the inhabitants of the land of the Philistine and the sovereign's servants were still in pain through the plague which the messenger had inflicted upon them the whole night on account of Sarai. And Abimelech sent for Abraham, saying, pray now for your servants to Yahuwah Elohim. Yahuwah Elohim, your Elohim. Your Elohim. He says, pray to Yahuwah, your Elohim. Yahuwah Elohim. How does he become our Elohim? When we walk the ancient path. He is only the Elohim of those in whom he is given his ancient path to, and whom he is entrusted his ancient path to. He is the Elohim of Abraham and Ishak and Yaqub. Torah was given to this great nation. And so though it was only given to this great nation. And so those of the nations, when they follow Torah, when they accept the Torah, they are no longer nations. Yahuwah is also their Elohim. He is also their Elohim then, when they partake of this very same ancient path. Abimelech did not follow Yahuwah. And so at this point, Yahuwah was Abraham's Elohim. He was Abraham's Elohim. And therefore, he could not pray to him. Indeed, it is written that those who turn their ear from hearing the Torah, from hearing the ancient path, even their prayer is an abomination. And so he could not pray. He could not pray to Yahuwah, but he asked Abram to pray to his Elohim. Listen to what happened. That he put away this mortality from amongst us. And this is why we must serve as intercessors, as priests, and as wailing women, because he's not their Elohim. He only becomes their Elohim when they acknowledge him as their Elohim. And how do we acknowledge him as our Elohim? We walk the ancient path. We walk the ancient path. We keep his Shabbat, which is a sign and a seal and a mark of the everlasting covenant between him and his people. It is a sign, it is an identifying marker that he is the Elohim of creation and that we are his people. And that we are his people. And so those who walk the ancient path, he is our Elohim. We have identified him as our Elohim. We have professed him to be our Elohim through our fruit, through our works, via walking the ancient path. Those who turn their ear from the ancient path, from hearing the ancient path, he is not their Elohim. No, he isn't. No, he isn't. He is not their Elohim, and their prayer is an abomination to him. Their prayer is an abomination to him. Indeed, in Psalms the 50th chapter, he says, what right have you? What right have you to speak about my covenant on your lips? What right have you to speak about my covenant on your lips? These are those who don't keep covenant with him, who do not walk the ancient path in Ruach and in truth. What right have they to even speak about his covenant? And so he called Abram here to pray for them because they could not pray for themselves. Because he was not, Yahuwah was not their Elohim. He was Abraham's Elohim, because Abraham had made the confession and profession that he is his Elohim via his fruit, via walking the ancient path in obedience to it. And Abraham prayed on account of Abimelech. Here we are. This is another characteristic of those walking the ancient path. We can pray to Yahuwah, and Yahuwah will hear us. Indeed, it is written even in the Barit Kadashah that if we supplicate him, and I'm paraphrasing, that if we supplicate him in accordance with his will, he hears us. And if he hears us, he will grant that which we are petitioning him for. These are those who are walking the ancient path. He does not hear the criminal. He does not walk in the Torah. He does not hear the Torahless one, the one not walking the ancient path. But if we're walking the ancient path as our father Abraham, he hears us. He hears us. Yes, he does. Yes, he does. He hears us and he will answer us. And Abram prayed on account of Abimelech. We are intercessors, we are priests and his subjects. And what happened? And Yahuwah heard the prayer. And Yahuwah heard the prayer of Abraham. And he healed Abimelech and all his subjects. And all his subjects. It's another characteristic of those walking the ancient path. If we pray to him, he hears us. And if he hears us, he will answer us. This is also said in the Barit Kadashah in the book of 1 John, the 5th chapter. Those who walk in this ancient path, if we pray to him, he hears us. And if he hears us, he will grant that which we are asking him for. Barak Yahuwah. Barak Yahuwah. I'm going to stop right here, Mishpaka, because I don't want to make any of these too long. We want to take our time with this. We want to walk out this ancient path and take our time with it so that we get this deep down within, deep down in our kilya, deep down in our heart, so that it stays there, so that we do not commit crime against our Abba, and so that we are drawn back to the ancient path that leads to everlasting life, so that we began to walk this path without turning to the right or to the left, so that then Abba begins to operate in this earth in order to reconcile the remnant of Adam, the remnant of mankind, back to himself. Barak Yahuwah. Barak Yahuwah. Thank you, Abba, once again for speaking through your servant and for showing us the ancient path. I pray that this is resonating with your people and that they're taking this serious, Abba, and that they would begin to align themselves with this ancient path, because in aligning ourselves with the ancient path, we are aligning ourselves with you. I pray that your people even now will begin to walk in you and you in them, that your people would begin to cry out, Abba, for your Ruach HaKadosh, that your people would begin to cry out for that inner cleansing, that you would come in and thoroughly cleanse our inner threshing floors, to purge away the chaff, to burn away the chaff, to burn away the fat and the impurities and the toxins within us, so that these hayikos, so that these temples are prepared, Abba, to receive you in fullness, so that we are become Torah's made flesh, so that we become visible images of the invisible Elohim, so that we then are prepared to go forth into the nations, to call your lost sheep, to call those who would hear and understand your voice, as shalak, as sent ones, to go out and gather your sheep and bring them back within the safety and the confines of your fence, so that they too will be able to get on board of the Ark of the Covenant, so that they too will live. I pray that this word, Abba, as it continues to go forth, that none of it has fallen by the wayside, that none of it has fallen on stony ground, and that none of it has fallen amongst thorns, but that every word spoken, Abba, has fallen on fertile soil, on tilled and fertile soil, such that afterwards your Ruach HaKadosh, your living water, will come through and water that seed, so that it grows up to produce a mighty tree, producing the fruit that leads to everlasting life. Let not one word spoken from the mouth of your servant fall void to the earth, my Abba, but let every word spoken go forth to accomplish that which it has been sent forth to do. In the Basham of Yahushua HaMashiach, so be it, so be it, so be it.
So be it.
Yeah.